I'm Jay Horton. I make movies that make money. This is how.
Jay, why do you say you are a filmmaker who makes money?
um, well, I am making a very specific style of movie. I'm making low budget features, usually under $100,000. And the vast majority of filmmakers that I talk to that are making movies at this level, a lot of them aren't making money. They're losing from the distributors, or, they're self-distributing and not doing anything. They don't know how to make money. I myself, I've directed 25 feature films at this point. And, the first probably 10 years of my career, I wasn't making a lot of money on these movies. I didn't know how. I didn't know how to navigate it. I kind of learned how later on. And I like to make it so that other filmmakers can maybe get to that point sooner than I did. And so I like to share some of that knowledge with them. It took me a long time before my movies were breaking even or making money. And so, and on top of that, as I was starting my YouTube channel, I was, there was a couple of growth experts that I'm following, and they have their little catchphrases. So I was like, oh, I need some kind of catchphrase. And it just, that just came out. I was getting ready to do it, and I was like, I'm Jay Horton. I make movies that make money. This is how, and it just felt like something that would interest other filmmakers, which was, the whole goal of the channel in the first place.
Right, you do that in your intro to the videos. Yeah, it does work. When did you become the filmmaker who makes money?
um, uh, so I've made money with my films from the beginning. I did struggle at the beginning, but pretty much. I mean, my first movie was distributed in 2003 by York Entertainment. Now, it didn't make anything, but from that and it getting distributed and out there, I started landing other filmmaking jobs, and that's where I first started to make money. But when I say, I'm Jay Horton, I make movies that make money. I mean, I produce movies, I direct movies, and I make money off those movies. I'm not necessarily talking about, hey, I get hired as an editor or a DP, which I have done. But, I'm specifically talking about making money off the exhibition of the movies. And I would say that started probably on a steady about 5 years ago, about 5 years, when right around the time that Amazon started opening up for streaming. And that's where I first started getting the rights back from some of my older films and finding that you actually could make a little bit of money on your own. And over the years, I've just gotten better and better at marketing them, at picking the movies, and, making more money with them.
Do you think that was a big contributor, is going back and getting those rights back, or new movies going forward once Amazon Prime opened up?
Yeah, it was a little bit of both. I mean, it was the old movies coming back up for license that made me realize that I could be an entrepreneurial producer. I had Rise of the Undead and Edges of Darkness. They were released in 2003 and 2008. Around 2014 or 15, I got the rights back for both of those within a year. And I honestly, at the time, I didn't know what to do with them. And there was a service called Create Space. It's owned by Amazon, but it was basically created for self-publishers, like authors. But they were doing a thing where you could give them your ISO video file from your movie for DVD, and they would make videos on demand, or DVDs on demand. And real soon after that, they started giving you the option to go onto Amazon Prime. And so this was before Prime Video Direct, but it's still basically a similar process. You'd upload yourself and get it up. So I put these two movies up on Amazon Prime, and they were making a few bucks a month, like nothing big. And then out of nowhere, one of them popped up to 1,000 a month. And then it kind of hit me. I was like, oh my gosh, what if this was a new movie? Because this is a 10-year-old title at this point. And it's doing all right. So then I started seriously considering, producing movies and hey, here's somewhere where I could put them even if I didn't do traditional distribution. And so it was always in the back of my mind. And then after I had a little sidetrack with Gas Money Pictures where I was doing animation studio. And that took me off movies for about 2 years. But then when I came back, I was like, hey, I'm going to do this like self-produce, self-distribute thing. And I just started making documentaries. And that's where I really got immersed in like the streaming and Amazon and then later Film Hub and then back into traditional distribution.
Was that the point of no return when you saw that email or whatever with $1,000?
Yes, yes, because like from that point on, I realized that hey, I can self-generate material. I can make these movies on my own without answering to anyone, and I can make a reasonable amount of money on it. If I made 1,000 on this older one, could I make 5,000 or 10,000 with a newer one? So it was like, hey, I don't need anybody to do this. There's no gatekeeping. It's like almost anyone can put a movie up there. So yeah, it really, really opened up the doors to me being my own boss.
And with this $1,000 in 1 month, were there rumblings online? Did you see more? Was this a complete surprise?
Complete surprise. So I was doing absolutely no promotion for it, like, no social media. It had no social media presence. Like I said, the movie was 10 years old. I had pretty much written them off at that point. It was totally just a fluke of the algorithm. It was on Amazon and a certain group of people started watching it and it just took off. It got a bunch of reviews after that and still not a ton. Like you'll hear people talking about how critical user reviews on Amazon are, but I've never really found that to be true. I don't think it hurts, but I have plenty of movies that have made, 5,000 a month, 10,000 a month, and they have, less than 200 reviews. So I never thought that was a big thing. But yeah, it really opened up. From that point on, I was just like, hey, this is what I want to do. And I've always had kind of a problem working for people. I always wanted to be my own boss. So here it was, I can do it.
Did you quit a job after that, or you were freelance?
So I was freelancing, around this time I was freelancing a lot. So I was primarily making my living as an editor. I worked for Fox cutting promos for a while. I would cut other people's features. I was hired to direct other people's features. Like I directed about 10 feature films for a company called AMG Film Partners. And they were all between $25,000 and $50,000. After I saw the self-distribution thing, and it took a few years now, because I started making the docs and, I'd do one here, one there. It took about a year before like my money was steady enough to where I could say, hey, I don't have to do freelance anymore. And I did. So I haven't done a freelance job in probably 3 years now. I directed one documentary last year that was for hire, but it was based off my, the stuff I'm doing now.